It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Western Illinois head men's soccer coach, Coach Dr. Eric Johnson. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in college coaching?
Yeah, it was a long time ago when I first thought about coaching and coaching in college, but I think the first step was just that my life had been built around sports, and whether it was outdoor sports or competitive sports, that's when I was the happiest. And I'm a very, very competitive person. And so that outlet for basketball, soccer, baseball, all the things I, played growing up, just led me to always be thinking about the game. And I think it was in college, I was an English major to start. And then finally, I just said, yeah, you're good at English, but it's not your passion. Your passion is sports, and maybe coaching is what you want to do. So I changed over and made English my minor and changed into a physical education major. My soccer coach was the chair of the physical education department at Calvin. So that was a really good arrangement for me, because he was both a mentor in soccer, but more importantly, he was a mentor for me as a coach and as a physical education teacher, which are very similar things, just a little bit different in terms of the competitiveness nature of college sports or high school sports even.
What was your coaching time like at Loras College?
At Loras, Loras was my first college job. So I had two jobs before Loras. I was a high school teacher and athletic director for 10 years in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I coached soccer and basketball at the high school level. And then I went back to get my PhD, and I coached the men's club team at the University of New Mexico. So those were college age players, and I was a player coach. So that was my introduction to coaching 18, 19, 20-year-olds. So that was a big transition from, 16 and 17-year-olds to college age players. And at Loras, I was hired to coach the men's team and actually reestablish the men's team. The program had been dropped for 1 or 2 years. I can't remember. So it was really a start from scratch again. I think there was only 2 players left from that group that had played in the Iowa Conference previously. And so I was rebuilding a program, and again, it was college age students. And I also was hired to teach and run the sport management undergrad program. So I supervised 45 students and taught 9 hours a semester. So I was a pretty busy person. I added men's tennis because they lost their tennis coach, and they saw that I had coached tennis in Fort Lauderdale for 2 years when I couldn't find a tennis coach for my high school program. I just sat in and chaperoned the tennis team. But so it was a really busy time. It was a 5-year thing. I finished my PhD while I was teaching and coaching because I hadn't finished my dissertation. And I got my introduction into college soccer, and it was the recruiting is probably that 5 years of recruiting for Division III was really critical, because you have to sell your program, and that prepared me for recruiting at the Division I level in Macomb, because we're so far away, a smaller town, not the easiest place to recruit. So great experience. The AD I had there, Bob Berry, was fantastic. He was the football coach, but he respected all the programs. He wasn't just strictly for football. And another mentor I had there was the chair of the phys ed department, Dr. Tucker. So a really good experience, and prepared me for, moving on and coaching here at Western Illinois University.
What was it like, obviously, when you joined the Western Illinois team in 1997?
The team was a little bit, well, it was way different than the players I had at Western. One, they were obviously more talented, more athletic, uh, but their passion for the game was similar. They needed some guidance. John McKenzie was the former coach, and in fact, he's the only former coach at Western. So there's only been two soccer coaches here at Western Illinois, John McKenzie and myself. And his wife had been sick for 2 years, so he was spending a lot of time at the hospital with his wife, and it was a difficult time for the players. Uh, when I came in, the team was divided into two segments. Some of the guys were way more serious and directed than the other half in terms of soccer. So we had to get over that hump, and basically I had to bring in players that were loyal to me and loyal to the program. And the transition was difficult, but we got through it. And the first 3 years were really tough. And then the fourth year, I think I don't have the records in front of me, but I think it was our fourth year that we turned the corner, and we started to compete pretty well in the Mid-Continent Conference and get some wins on the road. So big transition, a lot of fun for me, really motivating, and we stayed. I mean, my family and I, we decided this was the place just to raise our kids, and my wife and I said, let's make it work. And so we've been here ever since.
Of course, what was the 23 season, 2003 season like, leading, obviously, in school program history of the soccer program tying?
2003 was?
Mhm.
What was the record then? Do you have it written there? Let me pull this up. Hold on a second. Let me see. I've got the document here. Where is it? Oh, there it is. You're making me do some work here. 2003. 2003. Oh yeah, 11-5-3. We lost in the semifinals. Oh, we lost on an indirect free kick to UMKC. That was one of the best teams we had. Had a couple of really good players. We had a forward named Justin Langen, who also was the kicker for our football team. I recruited him out of Bettendorf, Iowa. Convinced Don Patterson that he could also be their starting kicker. And his second year, he won the kicking job. So he went on a football scholarship. He practiced every day football first, and then joined us halfway through our practice. He did the Superman change in the soccer equipment shed from his football clothes to his soccer clothes, and then practiced for like an hour with football, then an hour with us. And he was a leading scorer, I think 3 years for both teams, as a kicker, field goal, and point after. And then obviously for us, he played forward, two-footed forward. So 2003 was special till the end of the year when we lost in the semis. I thought we were the best team. The foul, I can still remember the foul. They knocked our player down, and the ball was under his legs, and the guy was kicking him, and they called us for obstruction. And it was an indirect free kick inside the box from like 8 yards, and we didn't set the wall properly, and the guy roofed it into the upper 90, and we lost in overtime, I think. But that was a really good team, and it just showed that hard work pays off, for our players. We had a really good senior group that year, and I think at Western, it's pretty obvious that we build a team, and so we struggle a little bit for 2 years, and then we're really competitive for the next 2 years, and we kind of were cyclic like that, bringing in freshmen, getting them stronger, quicker, faster, and then all of a sudden they're good enough to beat other teams who were have maybe better players as freshmen, but as juniors and seniors, we were able to compete as a team and to get some wins. So 2003 was pretty special. I still remember the pain and the suffering of losing, but obviously you go back and you look at the body of work that team put together for the year, and it was a great year, and I'm sure they have fond memories of playing together and winning some games together.
What was it like, obviously, having an amazing home field advantage span from 2002 to 2004?
Yeah, that must be league games you're referring to. And we've always been really good at home. One reason is because our field is the largest field in the Midwest. It's 75. I'm sorry, it's 120 yards by 80 yards wide. So it's the maximum width, and we used to spread teams out in a 4-3-3. And if our wings were good, they were isolated on fullbacks from the other team. So a lot of 1v1, and the player with the ball always has an advantage, right? And because the defender has to react, and the winger with the ball can make his move, and if he can squeeze by him, then we're going to get service, or we're going to get dribbled to the end line. And so our home field advantage sometimes is, one is the comfort zone of playing at home, and the other is having a big field that other teams aren't used to. Our grass is thick, so it's a little bit slower than some fields, but we're used to it. And I think the players always talk about protecting their home field and getting wins at home in front of their crowds. And I do remember we had a pretty good following from students in those days as well, and we would get 200 students out to the game, and that made it very exciting.
How was it like, obviously, in 2005, winning, obviously, the conference tournament?
Yeah, so I think 4, 5, and 6, we won 3 in a row. So I don't want to talk just about 2005 because that group came in 2003, and as freshmen they were pretty good, and the group above them was pretty good. So then the next 3 years we were really, really competitive, and we just got on a roll. I mean, it was a lot of fun. The 2006 team scored 50 goals. So the 2005 was really good, but 2006 was probably the most effective attacking team we ever had. We played 3 in the back, 6 in the midfield, and we had a freshman goalkeeper and a freshman forward. And so they built the season in 2006 was built on the success from 2005. That team proved that we could do it. And then obviously in 2006 repeated, and those guys all got a ring those 3 years, and the ring in 2006 said three-peat, and very exciting time for our program, and really fun to be around those guys and see them grow. As they come in as 17, 18-year-old skinny little freshmen, and then they leave as men, and they're all doing really well. Most of them are married with families now and coaching their kids. So that group, including 2005, was a fantastic time for us. And I think that we were still in the mid-con then, if I remember, and Oakland was still our nemesis, the foe we had to beat, as well as UMKC.
What was the transition like from obviously going from the Midco to obviously the Summit League that you're in now?
Yeah, the biggest thing is how the league has changed. And on the men's side, it's been pretty steady. It had been pretty steady on who was in. So when we went to the Summit League, we lost a couple teams and we gained a couple teams. So we lost Oakland, then we lost IUPUI, and we had played those teams for years. And when I started at Western, the team to beat was Oakland. The coach was Gary Parsons. He's still around. He's the general manager for the Mid-Michigan Bucks, their USL2 team. And so I still have conversations with him, but he was the best coach in the league, I thought, and had the best program in the league, and we could not beat them. And so beating them for the first time opened that, like, we got over that hump, and then we were able to compete and win a couple tournaments and a couple championships. And then the Summit League, as it changed and teams left for the horizon, we gained Denver and Omaha, and Denver and Omaha are way different than Western Illinois. Denver doesn't have football. It's in the foothills. It's a major city. Their budget for recruiting and for their soccer program is way different than our budget. They have players in town that can play Division I soccer, and they're playing for the Colorado Rapids Academy. So they're getting, really good coaching and the highest level of competition. And Macomb is in, I call it the Bermuda Triangle of Illinois. We're 75 miles away from towns with 60,000. And there's only been 4 players from Macomb that have played Division One, and those are my sons, and they're the only kids who came out of local. So different. And Omaha dropped football, and converted their football stadium into a soccer stadium. They have a video board that's bigger than our football video board, and so they have those 2 teams really changed it. And so now our number one nemesis is Denver, because we've only beaten them once, and that was in 2019. So that was a huge win for us. So now we have the confidence that we can do it, but we haven't done it again. But the transition is just going from east towards the west, really. So now instead of traveling to Detroit, we travel to Denver and Tulsa, and now UMKC is back in, so Kansas City. So the furthest east program for men is Eastern Illinois, and they're an affiliate member. So there has been some change, but we just need to compete with these new teams, and we have beaten all of them. So now it's just a matter of putting it together in a season.
What is it like, obviously, getting to coach both the men's and the women's soccer team?
Yeah, that was kind of a move out of necessity. We lost our women's coach, and obviously they tried to hire again. They had a search, and they had a couple candidates, didn't work out, and they failed the search. And the AD came to me and said, "Can you help me?" And I'm like, "Well, can you help me?" And so we kind of made a deal that financially they would help me, and then workload I would help them. So I took over both programs, and the women's program was in a little bit disarray. The girls didn't have a lot of confidence, and needed some new recruiting to be done, and that was a rebuild as well. And it took a long time, and recruiting for 2 teams is really difficult. Because of the amount of travel to go see players. We're not driving 45 minutes. We have to drive a couple hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, to see players. And so the workload was significant. I had really good help. And Jose Primo came in as a grad assistant, and she's still here as the associate head coach. And she's taken over the recruiting for the women. And then this past year, we finally realized the fruits of our work, and the girls had their best year ever. We were picked last in the league, and the girls finished 5th and missed the 4-team tournament by 1 win. We lost a game we thought we could have won 1-0 on the road. And but the girls that first class that we had, they were seniors this year, COVID seniors. They chose to come back and have a normal regular season. And those 5 girls were really important to the program, great leaders, really good players, and they helped turn it around. And the girls had a winning season for the first time in, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. And coaching women is a challenge that's the same as the men, but it's different than the men. And the men, you have to prove that you can coach. With the women, you have to prove that you appreciate them and you care for them. And then once you do that, then the soccer part is the same. So you get them fit, you teach them how to play, you find out who the best players are. It's all the same, but they need to get along. They need to trust each other and the coaching staff. And so the team we had this year was a lot of fun for me. And now I'm stepping down from doing the women, and I'm going to concentrate on the men to try to get them back to where we were in the past, and allow someone to step in and hopefully continue what we started with the women.
Of course, on the men's side, what is it like, obviously, being the most winningest coach on the men's soccer?
I think that just means I'm the oldest coach in the league, and have managed to keep my job here at Western for, I think it's 25 years. And so, it's more of continuity, and being able to stay in the same place and enjoying your time here, and then having great players we've had those ups and downs, right? Like I said, it's been cyclic, and we're on a down cycle now, and we need to get on an up cycle. but I don't think about that. I think about each season as a work in its own, and obviously at the end when I stop coaching, maybe I'll look back on all that. But I haven't put much thought to that. More about right now we're not good enough, and I want to get us to be better and back in there fighting for the top spot in the Summit League.
What does the recruitment process look like for prospective student athletes looking to play college soccer at Western Illinois?
The recruiting process is it's always ongoing, and you have to find players that think they fit into a small state school community. Our city players, from the metro areas like St. Louis and Chicago, it's a big difference for them, and typically that difference is a little bit upsetting for them for the first month, and then they realize how much fun they can have here, and they end up loving Macomb because it's so different than where they grew up. And I think Macomb has advantages. The distractions are minimal, in terms of how you're going to spend your free time. So our players typically stay out of trouble. They grow closer as a team because they spend so much time together. Our first 2 years, you have to live in the dorm. So our players live together and they get to know each other, and they typically find their best friends for life, because they get through that living in a small room in the residence hall. And then their next 2 years, or their last 2 years, they live off campus in a house as a group, and maybe that's a group of 4 or 5. And so that's a good situation. Gives the freshmen and sophomores a place to go to get away from the dorm. So the recruiting process is about the soccer family that we have and we provide, and it's important that they are pulled into the family, that they have support from both the administration, academic help, soccer help, weight training help, all that, is part of that family experience. And that's what we sell. I think our advantages are too, we're a state school. We have a multitude of diplomas that you can earn and degrees. We have good grad programs. So that's part of what we sell. And then because we're a state school, when you compare us to a private institution, it's a little bit less challenging for the pocketbook and the checkbook on that part. So parents kind of like that as well. So we just try to sell the family experience and the opportunity to play Division I soccer at a place where they care and where we have good facilities and where they're going to be coached.
What does the official visit look like for prospective student athletes looking to play college soccer?
Yeah, an official visit for us is typically, if they're within a driving distance, is a 24 to 30 hour experience. And usually that means a campus tour, dinner with the coaching staff. Before COVID, the players would spend an evening and overnight with one of the players. We haven't been doing that. We've been putting the families in a hotel room by themselves, just to avoid any COVID problems. We make an academic appointment for them in the degree areas that they're interested, so they can talk with the people that get that information to them. And typically they meet with the academic advisor, so they know, what it takes to graduate and how their degree is going to be processed through. So, and then we'd like to have them come during the season for a home game. Sometimes it's during the winter, so then we try to get them to a basketball game, and time that so they can see that there is a crowd and people come and see Western athletes compete. Sometimes during the fall, it falls on a Saturday and there's a home football game, and they can walk around the tailgate, which is a huge part of our football program on Saturdays in Macomb. So those are all the things we try to show them. And the biggest thing is meeting the players and the staff and seeing if there's a connection that might lead them to commit to Western.
What's it like, obviously, getting to see those prospective student athletes put on that purple jersey, whether it's the men prospective student athletes or the women?
I think, playing for the purple jersey is important. We're the only team called the Leathernecks in the country. It's a special name, and the connection is to the nickname for the Marines. And I don't know if you knew this, but in World War I, the Marines wore a leather band around their neck for protection in the hand-to-hand combat, especially bayonet or knife fighting. And so they were affectionately called the Leathernecks because they wore that protective band. And our football coach from way back, Colonel Rock Hansen, was a lieutenant colonel in the Marines. And when he came back to coach the football team, he got permission to use the Leatherneck nickname as our nickname. And then our mascot is Rocky, and Rocky is a bulldog, and the bulldog is the Marines mascot. So we inherited too. So we have a nickname, Leathernecks, and we have a mascot that's a bulldog. But we are not the Bulldogs. We are the Leathernecks. So that's a special thing. And just knowing that there's a story behind their nickname, I think is special. And then obviously putting on purple and gold uniforms is critical. And you have to play for the jersey and all the players that wore the jersey before, no matter what sport. And we try to teach the history of that and the pride that they have in putting on Leathernecks, and then dedicating themselves to, the principles that the Marines stand for, and loyalty, hard work, leaving no one behind, those kind of principles.
What's it like, obviously, getting to see the young men on the soccer team go on from obviously Western Illinois to make it to the MLS?
Yeah, that hasn't happened a lot, but I can talk about Kosuke Kimura, who played for the Colorado Rapids, and Kosuke is from Japan. His first email to me was, I didn't know it at the time, but was written by someone who could actually speak and write in English, because he couldn't. And he sent me some film, and he just sent me a film of him playing in Japan. And I emailed back, which player are you? Because I couldn't tell who he was. And because you couldn't see the numbers. And he wrote back in an email I think it was the 20 minutes into the game, he said, I score a goal from outside the box. So I fast forwarded to that point, saw the goal, and then just started backtracking, and I could kind of follow him from the color of his shoes. And so we offered him a walk-on spot because he was a non-qualifier at the time. He didn't have the test score, and his TOEFL score was really low. So he came in, he did the English second language program that we had. And he did it for an entire year. He wasn't allowed to practice with the team. He played intramurals, I think. He was devastated that he couldn't play, but he was very driven. So he learned English in those 2 semesters. And then the first day of training as a freshman, it was the first time I saw him play in person. He was a starter for 4 years. It worked out for him to play in the MLS. We played at UIC in the NCAA tournament in the first round. He had a really good game, and the scout from Colorado Rapids was there to watch a player from UIC, and they signed Kosuke instead of that player. And he started as an expansion draft player. And he had to coach youth soccer on the side. He had to live with like 5 guys in an apartment to make ends meet. So he struggled for 3 years. They got a new coach. His name is, I forget his first name. His name is Smith. New coach came, and he switched Kosuke from playing in holding mid to right back, because his aerobic capacity was better than anyone they had. And that's why they kept him, because he would make all the old pros work so hard because he could just run forever. And so anytime they did fitness work, Kosuke would be first. And the old pros would ask him to slow down. He would just laugh, and say, I'm only here to make you work. So I know my job. And but when he got his chance at right back, he made it. And I got to see him play against the Chicago Fire in Chicago, and it was awesome to see one of our players, playing at that level. And then obviously the picture of him holding up the MLS Cup when they won it was great for all our players who played with them. I got so many texts, Coach, did you see Kosuke on the field in the championship game? And he held up the cup, and so a lot of good memories from that. And he might not have been the best player on that team, but he's the most driven player and focused player I've ever had. And that's what it takes. He had a one-track mind, and that was to become a pro soccer player. And so he lived right, he ate right, he did everything he could to stay on that path towards being a pro. And he's now coaching down in Nashville. And I think he still runs the fitness test with the guys and beats everybody, even though he's 33 or 34 years old now. So that's my favorite MLS or pro story. There's other couple guys who have done it, not at the MS level, but the USL level. And those, they have special stories too, but I won't bore you with all the details of those stories.
Of course, what is it like, obviously, seeing the women soccer players go on to the NWSL?
Yeah, we haven't had that yet. So it's going to be, someone's going to break through. We have a player right now. I'll put the pressure on her and publicly say that Amy Andrews could do it if she wants. She's going to play this summer in a summer amateur league, which is a high level summer league. If she does well there, I think that might open the door for her. She's got the pace and technical ability. She's very determined. She was our leading scorer this year and was an all Summit League player. So she's probably going to have the best chance of anyone that I've coached. Even though we've coached some good players, I think there's something special there. And so we might have to revisit that after next season. She's going to return for her senior year. We'll see what happens after that if she makes it and gets drafted.
What advice would you give high school athletes looking to go in and play college soccer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think what I tell kids or players, young guys that are playing, I say you have to put yourself in the most competitive environment you can that's financially possible. And some kids are driving 2 hours to do that, one way. And that's a pretty big commitment financially and time wise. But there are other ways. You can play in men's leagues. You can play in the Sunday men's league. If you're 16 or 17, you're playing against full grown men. That'll teach you how to hold the ball when you get bumped. It's typically pretty physical and they need to do that. The other thing is to stay out of trouble. If you have priorities, you have to write them down. You got to look at them every day and you got to follow them and you have to spend the time. A lot of players dream about it and they dream about playing Division I, but the dream is just a dream and then they don't take the steps to make that dream, come to a reality. And those steps are constantly trying to improve your game, improve your physical aspects, your speed and strength and your quickness, and to listen to coaches, to listen to your parents, to be respectful, get good grades. There's more money, academic money, than there is scholarship money for soccer. So if you can get a little bit of both, you might pay for your education. So it's those things that are kind of obvious, but kids don't think about. You have to remind them of them. So my advice would be do really well in school so you can prepare yourself for an academic scholarship as well as a soccer scholarship, and then find a school that you think you can be happy at. And it can't be just because of playing time. It has to be because of the full experience, right? The people that the degree program that you go through, location, can your parents come see you play? Do they want to see you play? Can you get home for the weekend? All those kind of things. So it's a process where they have to see and feel that they fit. And if they feel like they fit, they're probably on the right track for a good experience for college.
What advice would you give future college coaches looking to get started in the industry, whether it's coaching on the soccer side of the men's or the women's?
I think for any young coach that wants to coach in college, if I would start, if I could, as a grad assistant and break into college coaching that way. But that's not the only route. I just think it makes it easier because you start to network with college coaches and you meet college coaches who might be your future boss. Networking is really critical in coaching, just as is in the business world, right? And but there are other ways. I didn't start that way. I coached high school for 10 years, but I broke in to college coaching because I got a PhD and they were hiring a sport management professor slash coach, and I had the qualifications for both, right? So that I think credentials are critical, right? Master's degree, bachelor's degree, coaching certifications and licenses are important. The biggest thing is to find some mentors, and then to constantly don't think you know everything about the game. I'm still learning things about players and how to motivate them, and things about the game that can help win games, and the things I don't learn have helped me lose games, right? So you need to always be thinking that you can get better as a coach. And to get better as a coach, you need to watch games, you need to talk to other coaches. But I think the door is open for coaches when they have that attitude that they just want to learn, and they want to better themselves. So you just have to find ways. But credentialing is critical, and credentialing is about playing the system, and the system is degree requirements, and coaching certifications always help. So you meet the minimum qualifications, so you don't get put into the no stack because you don't have a master's degree. If that's a requirement, you stay in the yes stack because you have that credential. And then the next thing, as I mentioned, is growing as a coach and learning from other coaches.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the men's and women's Western Illinois program at?
Say it again.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the soccer program at?
Yeah, our social, I think there's a Twitter account. I'm not huge into that, but there is, I think it's under Go Leathernecks Soccer. I think the easiest place to find that would be on goleathernecks.edu, which is our website for our athletics program. And if you can't find that, it's wiru.edu, which is an easy one, Western Illinois University.edu, but just wiu.edu. And then you can find all the links to athletics as well as academic programs.
Thank you again, Dr. Earl Johnson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the men's soccer program.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Dr. Earl Johnson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Okay, thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.